Are we going to let them destroy our health, our roads, our environment, our way of life in order to vertically integrate the supply chain of a plastics multinational for a product we don't even want?
Let's make sure that fossil fuels become history.
Global Solidarity Day of Action. There's something like 130 groups in the UK doing stuff, as well as here in Sheffield. And across 6 continents, Friends of the Earth groups from Indonesia to Germany to South Africa to Palestine are doing events like this. So you're not alone in this fight. Our voice is united about keeping fossil fuels in the ground. And we know that more than half of fossil fuels reserves that we know about simply can't be burnt. We also know that vested interests want to burn those. They've got a big profit incentive to burn those, and we need to keep fighting that.
This government's policy on fracking says an awful lot about them. On all the big issues that we face, they call it wrong. Now, back in 2015, when they pioneered fracking within the infrastructure bill, kind of don't want to get too techie in terms of the stuff that goes on in the House of Commons, but that was the legislative framework through which they were trying to press fracking forward. As a Labour Party, we work closely with Friends of the Earth, of which I'm pleased to be a member, to try to tackle some of the environmental issues that were of enormous concern. We tabled 14 amendments to the bill that we drafted along with Friends of the Earth that tried to deal with the issues about well integrity, about emissions, about groundwater, methane, about protected areas. And we actually won those votes, and the government used a mechanism within Parliament to overturn them.
I always think it's better if we answer a question before lunging into a conversation. And the question I always ask myself at anything where I have to speak is, why am I here? You know, what the hell am I doing here? And then I realised that really, in a preference thing as a grandma, I'd rather be having a day out with my grandchild and spending time with her. But for nearly 7 years now, I've had to put that aside because this is all about being a grandmother, although she's not there. So for me, the reason I'm here is probably the same reason you are. It isn't that you're anti-fracking. It's that you're pro-family, pro-future, pro your children surviving with quality air and water. And no matter how you put it, we can't allow this to go on.
This campaign, of course, is about defence of our local communities and our local environment. And can I just say a word about those people who criticise anti-fracking campaigners for being NIMBYs? I'm sorry, Dave from Marsh Lane gave the figures. If I had my kid going to Marsh Lane Primary School and I knew that a fracking rig was going to be built in the field right next door to the school, and INEOS had turned around and said, don't worry, we'll put double glazing into your school, I would say, I do not want the frackers in my local community. So when local people stand up to defend their local communities, we absolutely stand shoulder and shoulder with them.
In our region, we are now facing 6 exploration wells at 5 sites: Misson near Bawtry, Tinker Lane near Blythe and Retford, Marsh Lane, and now Hartshill and Woodsets in Rotherham. Experts say that if they can have as many wells as they want to get, there could be up to 90,000 wells across the north of England. INEOS have admitted themselves that in an area 10 kilometres by 10 kilometres, they want up to 400 wells.
Our current campaign is focused more on divestment, which is kind of the more shadowy, behind-the-scenes side of keeping South Yorkshire fossil free. And what divestment really basically means is asking large organisations who have shares in these fossil fuel funds, which is pretty much all large organisations, churches, universities, pension funds especially, to take their money, which is our money, out of those funds, to stop funding fossil fuel companies and to stop propping them up. Even if we are going on these marches and saying that we don't want fracking, we don't want fossil fuels anymore, sometimes our money, without us realising, is being used to fund this and make sure that it's still happening.
Because once you know the harms and the risks that this brings to your children, you can't unknow it. And therefore, to ignore it would be to be negligent as a parent or grandparent or as someone in your community. So it was an unwelcome gift of truth. And the other reason it was unwelcome is that not only do you realise the harms that fracking will bring, you then ask yourself the question, why the hell would my government let that happen? Why is that possible? And if this is possible, what else have they done? And then you look at the media and you look for true representation of what this industry is and some honest answers about the truth of what it will bring rather than a press release or a paid-for academic study. And then you wonder, who bought our academic institutions? Who paid for the media? And where the hell do I find truth anymore in this society? So it's a very unwelcome gift of truth because it's like peeling back layers of an onion. Thank you.
Climate change is also about a wider question about our society and the future of our planet. Climate change and the growth of extreme weather associated with it is a reality. Just let's think of what's been happening across the globe over the last few weeks. The impacts of hurricanes, of extreme weather situations. Look at the richest state in the richest country in the world, California in the USA at the moment. You see the impact of 5 years of drought brought along by climate change in huge forest fires. This is affecting all regions of the globe, impacting, of course, we know, on the global south far more strongly. But this is a huge global issue that our movement has to change. Now, I gave a talk on climate change a couple of years ago, and in my notes for that meeting, I looked at some research, and it said the 10 previous years, at the time I gave the talk 2 years ago, were the 10 hottest ever years in human history since recording began. Now, if I was giving that speech today, I'd have to say the last 12 years are the 12 hottest years ever in human history. Climate change is a reality, and it's staying there. And we as human beings cannot afford to continue to allow a political and economic system where huge corporations like INEOS and the politicians, the corrupt politicians they prop up, continue to push policies which destroy our planet and our communities. And I really think we have to take a lesson from the great Canadian author and activist Naomi Klein when she says we need system change to stop climate change. We need to change this system fundamentally to stop the climate change that's destroying our planet.
You know, positive developments. We should recognise that just 4 years ago, in 2013, renewables accounted for just 15% of energy production in the UK. Just 4 years later, renewables account for 30% of energy production. That is an enormous transformation over 4 years. And on one magic day in June this year, the National Grid reported that for the first time, renewables contributed more than 50% of the energy production within the UK.
Scotland. Yes! Scotland did it, INEOS. They've got a plant in Grangemouth, 40,000 jobs. They must have been leaning on the Scottish nationalists like hell. And they said, no, we're looking after our people. We're not looking after the multinationals. Germany have done the same. You know, they said in 2015 their groundwater is more important. And I mean, if anybody could make fracking safe through regulation, you'd think the Germans would be able to do it. But you can't. You can't make fracking safe, and we can't allow it.
Renewables aren't a dream. They are the technology of the present. They are the technology of the future. Fracking is the wrong priority at the wrong time. It locks us into a dependence on fossil fuel. It will force us into having an infrastructure framework for energy production that forces us into a dependence on fossil fuel, when what we need to be doing is focusing our investment and focusing our energy on renewables. And that's why the Committee on Climate Change said that it will lock us in wrongly to that dependence well beyond 2030, when gas in the UK gas use has to sharply decline.
We need to wake up, we need to rise up, we need to open our eyes and